Little bit. Welcome everyone to tonight's webinar. My name is Morgan Hicks. I'm the Graduate Admissions Advisor here at SUNY Plattsburgh. Tonight we're going to be discussing the Master of Social Work program. And we do have two faculty members here with us. First we have Dr. Pipenbring. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Pipenbring, and I am an assistant professor here at SUNY Plattsburgh and the MSW program director. And I'm joined tonight by my wonderful colleague, Dr. Weldon. Tricia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'll keep it short and sweet as well. I'm one of the faculty in the MSW program, have been teaching for a number of years in different universities and happy to be at Plattsburgh.
Thank you both. I'm also just going to show some of our admissions staff as well. Um, Our office, we also have a new office assistant, Tammy, that joined us in the last few months. But Michelle, myself, and Grace all take one-on-one appointments. So I just like to point that out in case any of you after this or in the future need an admissions appointment. We all do appointments, and we love to meet with people one-on-one and answer any additional questions that you might have. So tonight we are going to do a program overview. We're going to talk about the curriculum and the field experience, as well as different career opportunities. And then we'll also discuss the graduate admissions process and the cost and aid related to tuition fees and also some of the funding opportunities as well. And someone said there's a lot of echoing. Is anyone else getting a lot of feedback?
I'm not.
No? Okay. I don't know if it's just that one person, but apologize. I don't know if there's anything we can do to fix that. Um, Before we move forward, somebody else said they raised their hand. I wonder if there is some echoing.
Somebody else said none on their end.
Okay. Maybe it depends on the person's setup.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, before we move forward to, I am just going to mention that a few of the slides have some QR codes. So feel free to have your phones out to scan those. Those will bring you to any relevant web pages. And then also we will have some time for questions towards the middle of the presentation and then again at the end. So if you have any questions for myself, like admissions wise, or more towards the faculty for program information, please send those either through the chat or through the Q&A feature, and we will make sure we try to get to all of your questions. Okay, so I will hand it over to the faculty to start with what is the Master of Social Work?
Okay, thank you, Morgan. So our Masters of Social Work program offers a couple of different program options. And so I'm going to try to break these down into digestible parts here. So we have a 60 credit program, or we have a 30 credit program, which is often referred to as our advanced standing program. So some people sometimes are like, well, which program do I apply for? Which program am I going to? And so for anybody who has an undergraduate degree in social work, you are eligible to apply for the 30 credit advanced standing program. And basically, the reason for that is because our accrediting body, the Council on Social Work Education, recognizes the senior year of a BSW degree to be equivalent to the foundation year of a graduate degree. So essentially, that's how you're shaving off that 1 year and eligible to apply for the advanced standing. So I sometimes get asked questions about like, oh, I don't have a degree in social work, or you know what, I majored in music. Do I have to take social work classes before I apply? No, you don't. You can have an undergraduate degree in education, in psychology, in criminal justice, in music, in art, and apply for an MSW degree. You would be applying for the 60 credit program because, again, you don't have a BSW, so you would need that foundation year. Um, So the Masters of Social Work, our program is really focused as an advanced generalist program. And so the reason we design it as such is because it really broadens your lens and frankly your marketability. So we have a variety of courses that are clinically focused, that are policy or macro focused. But we ensure that we have all of the classes that are required to allow students to be able to sit for the New York State licensure exam. Um, so, there are so many different career pathways in social work. Um, I kind of endearingly say it's the field of never say never, for many reasons. One, you sometimes, just never know what you're going to end up doing in the field because you start out somewhere and then, an interest sparks or a skill is observed and you kind of move on to other things, but also because it's evolving so rapidly. So, and I'll give you kind of an idea of what you could be doing in different settings upon degree completion. You might be working in a hospital setting as a medical social worker, working in an emergency room, doing crisis intervention or diagnostic assessments, working in child welfare systems, working with persons with developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities, aging populations, those who are incarcerated, those who are reentering the community upon, being released from incarceration, um, and school social work, and community outreach, engagement, policy work, being able to help reform policies and legislation. It really is it's one of the things that I just that it kind of drew me to the field is just how many different um you know how many different directions you could take this career. And the reason why I say it's ever evolving is because some things that are new include that they're hiring even for social workers in veterinarian settings. So thinking about like grief and loss. So social workers do grief and loss counseling and supportive counseling. And, we're doing that for pets now too. Social workers have even found themselves not just working in family court, but I have seen postings for legal offices looking for social workers to help clients prepare them for depositions and trials and walking them through kind of like their nerves of, entering that kind of a setting. I have seen more social workers actually have postings for like corporations, so businesses that are looking to provide support to people who might be in sales or might have like really high pressure jobs, and they might be doing things like helping with, their esteem, their sense of agency, conflict resolution, and so on. And then my last thing that I will say to you about you just never know what a social worker can do is one of the universities that I was formerly at. The president of that university was a social worker and, came to our meetings because, of course, he had a fondness for social work. And, he was like, people, ask me like, what do I, what do I do? What do I do? And I tell them all the time, I'm just constantly using my social work skills in everything that I do. So it really is a very wide net that you can cast. Trisha, anything else you want to add there?
Oh,
You,
you're muted.
yep, I think you covered that well.
Okay. Feel free to just unmute when you want.
Okay. I've,
Okay. So what's unique about our courses? I kind of covered a little bit about this. We're an advanced generalist. So again, you have a blend of both that micro, macro, and then the meso. There are courses that you are required to take that ensure that you are license eligible because NICED looks at the particular courses and they have to match certain criteria. So they look at the education criteria for the courses that we offer. And so we ensure that you are all set and eligible to sit for your licensure in the state of New York. Now, every state is a little bit different, but but we make sure that you are eligible for New York. So, really our approach is to be able to help enhance, brighten, refine your own interpersonal skills, including, helping you develop clinical skills that are going to allow you to help advocate on behalf of clients, groups, communities, to be able to work in interdisciplinary settings, to be able to advocate for human rights, to become social work scholars if that's what you choose. But I think on a little bit more personal level, I personally feel what is unique about our program is that we describe ourselves as a very relationally focused faculty. So we really enjoy getting to know our students, and we have actually designed the modality for which we deliver our courses based on the values of that relational approach. And I'll explain to you as we go forward here what those different modalities look like, and what makes our online program option a little bit different from some other online options. We also offer a success coach. We have somebody who is there to work with students if they feel like they're, kind of struggling, whether that be like, I'm just struggling to get motivated. I don't really know how, to get started on this, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. And, our success coach is great at working one-on-one with our students, and then also helping provide the linkage to different resources that students might need. And then our modalities. So we have a couple of different options for how you take your courses. One is what we call an in-person synchronous blend, or sometimes we call it like an in-person hybrid. Um, and so what that means is that, we recognize that there's some students that know that they kind of, thrive with having some of that in-person classroom time. And so we have our branch campus that's located in Queensbury, and we offer in-person classes at the branch campus in Queensbury, but we blend it with some synchronous classes. So what that looks like is every other week, students have an opportunity to physically meet in the classroom at our Queensbury campus. And then every other week, they might be like zooming in to their class. So it offers some flexibility to kind of give a bit of a, blend of getting that in person, face-to-face time, but then also, some flexibility in scheduling. So, they can, decrease some travel time on the off weeks where they're zooming in. And then we have our online program option. And what is different about our online program option is that we are not just straightforward online asynchronous. Asynchronous means that, there's no Zoom options and that you're just logging on to your classes. You might be watching, a video recording, doing your self-directed learning and work, and, never kind of having this type of interface with any of your faculty. We very much value being able to have these moments, even though I can't see any of you right now. But we very much enjoy being able to work with students in this way. And some of our courses, we very much hold tight to our values, particularly our practice courses. We believe we need some of those touch points, right? We're kind of, where we're modeling, as best as you can see, like our nonverbals, our tones. You're getting to know us a little bit differently by having some of this kind of Zoom interaction. So our online program has kind of a blend of some of your courses will be, have like a synchronous class time. So you'd have like a Zoom class every other week. And then on the off weeks, you might be doing some asynchronous work. And then a few of our classes are strictly asynchronous in nature. And some of those tend to be a little bit more like policy oriented, whereas our practice courses and our field seminars. So our field seminars, if there's anybody who is on the call who's part of our BSW program and in our online program, you know that those are the courses that, we hold tight to making sure that we have this kind of interaction via Zoom. So that's what kind of differentiates our online program. Um, but it still offers, kind of the flexibility. The other thing that I'll just kind of offer in terms of information for both program options, in person, hybrid, and online, is that we recognize that many of our students are doing the life juggle. And so, between family commitments, work commitments, just lifing, having kind of that one designated day where they know, okay, I have to hold this day as like, sacred in my schedule. So for instance, our upcoming fall semester, our students know that Wednesday afternoons and evenings that they will be in classes from like 4 to 8:30, right? And our in-person hybrid where we meet at Queensbury, the same thing. Our students know, okay, every other Tuesday I need to be on campus, and my classes are stacked, so they're offered all in that day. So essentially, what I'm trying to communicate to you all is that you know that you'll have that one day blocked out for attending your classes.
Thank you. Right. So looking a little more into the classes that you've been talking about.
Yeah, so this is what our program pathway would look like for our 60 credit 2-year program. And you can see here that you'd have 15 credits each semester. Part of that includes so you'd have 3 courses. So if we just look at fall here, you'd have like social welfare, social theory, and then you'd have interventions 1. And then you would also take your field practicum and your field seminar. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that, your field practicum is your internship. And your field seminar is the course that goes with it. And that's the course that we look at very much as like kind of additional supervision. You're talking about the cases, you're processing, your ethical decision making, treatment policy, etc. And so for your field work, in your first year, you're required to do 450 hours of field work, which turns out to be, and that's over an academic year. So that turns out to be roughly 14 hours per week in the field. Um, and then we do have part-time program pathways as well. I'm not sure if that's on here.
I don't think we have them in the
Okay.
presentation, but definitely touch on that.
I can definitely tell you what those would be. So basically, we have part-time pathways, whether you are a 60 credit or a 30 credit. And so what that would look like is, so I'll just stay with this example for the fall. Those first 2 courses up there, Social Work 500 and Social Work 505, those would be the 2 courses that you take in the fall of year 1. And then fall of year 2, you would have the remaining 3. Because those last 3 are what we call co-requisites, which means you just have to take those classes all, concurrently at the same time. Because our interventions class is teaching about, kind of the applied skills of the interventions, and then you're in your field, so you have the opportunity to really integrate and apply what you're learning in interventions. So, I'm happy to offer more information afterwards if anybody has questions, but basically, a part-time pathway for a 60 credit program would be 4 years. And so, you can kind of do the math and, come to the conclusion that for the 1-year program, if you went part-time, it would be 2 years. I do see a question about summer options. And we have limited summer program options, but we do have some right now. They are currently for this summer, predominantly for our advanced standing students. And I can explain a little bit about that when we move on to that pathway.
Did you want me to go forward to the next one?
Sure, yeah.
So that would be your advanced standing
Yep.
pathway.
So this is our advanced standing pathway. And so students have the option to take this first class here, the Social Work 590 Advanced Special Topics, which is psychopathology, during the summer. Or they don't have to. That's just a personal preference if they'd like to get one out of the way. But otherwise, a full-time pathway would include these 5 classes. Um, where they're taking, a trauma class with yours truly, Dr. Weldon, with us here tonight, and your field work. So that's the practicum and your seminar, advanced integrative practice with yours truly, me, and the psychopathology. I shouldn't say it's just us because we have more people than that teaching it, but those are the classes that are like our babies. So I'm like claiming them and I shouldn't. And so again, similar to if you wanted to, break this down to be part-time, the pathway would look like taking the trauma class and the psychopathology class in the fall, your first year. And then in the fall of your second year, you would have your practicum, your seminar, and your advanced integrative. For the spring, your 2 classes, if you went part-time, would be the advanced special topics, which would be an elective, the capstone class, and then the spring year 2 would be, again, your practicum seminar, and then theories of organization, which go hand in hand. Again, that's a concurrent class with your field. And for the fall, 565, that's a concurrent class with field. Oh, it looks like there's a question in here.
I think it was the same.
Same. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so getting more into field experience.
Yeah. And so I mentioned the 450 hours in the first year. And so for the second year, it's a total of 500 hours. And that breaks down to about 16 hours per week. And we work with students. This is the other thing that I didn't mention earlier, that what is unique about our program. Our field department works very closely with students for the matching process. So it starts by having students complete a survey to kind of get a sense of what areas of interest you have. What would you like to get experience in? Some people have, they're working in the field, and so employment-based field, can be an option for those students. We do a process of it. You have to apply for that. But we work very closely with students to place them in their field agencies. And I say that that's unique because not all programs do that. Some programs have outside third parties kind of do that. Some leave it up to the students directly. We don't do that. When you're in the field, you will be directly under the supervision of a social work, a practicing social work who also has their master's. And you're going to be practicing in settings. And what you're doing there is, again, like we're going to, tailor this to align with your professional interest. And this is where, again, you get to apply what you're learning in your classroom. So you might be doing things like, analyzing policy or making recommendations to policy, or beginning to do assessments, intervene with clients, groups, communities. So in the foundation year, you have your 450 hours, and the skills, the level of skill development obviously is kind of scaffolds, right? So by your advanced practicum year, you're engaging in more complex cases and interventions. And again, you have a field supervisor in your placement. Okay, I know there's a bunch of questions here, so
Yeah, there's a couple questions related to field work.
yeah, let me try to.
Um,
Yeah.
so one you answered already, but we can touch on it. It says, can students do field practicum at work as a
Mhm.
preventative care planner?
That sounds like it would probably meet our criteria. Yeah. So it has to be within, you have to be able to, this is going to sound complicated at first because you don't know this language, but because we are accredited by the Council Work of Social Work Education, they lay out what they call these 9 competencies, right? And these 9 competencies, you have to have the opportunity to engage and apply and, kind of master these 9 competencies in your field setting. And so it sounds like preventative care. There could be plenty of opportunities. I just say that with the caveat of this is why we work so closely, our students work so closely with field because we want to get information to make sure that students are going to have the opportunity to have those competencies met.
Yeah, I think it's also important to mention when it comes to work-based field placements, certainly our field directors will work closely with each organization to see if it makes sense. But we want you or any student who's doing a work-based placement to have a different experience than their current job. So it's
Mhm.
not just doing like extra hours or getting your hours to count for the internship, but it's getting that true social work experience that, as Julie mentioned, that those competencies are getting addressed and built and fostered. So for some organizations that are very small, that can be really difficult. But if you're at a medical center, a school, a large mental health facility, they oftentimes have different experiences that they're willing to be flexible. But then the field director gets involved and makes affiliation agreements and things like that, so that they're signing a contract with us saying they're willing to do this, and we're working with them to ensure that the student is there and ethical and all of that.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And the other thing that I want to add to that is, in addition to what Dr. Walden just said, we also very much try for and strongly encourage a supervisor who is not your employment supervisor. And really, the reason why we promote this is in the best interest of students, because truly. To allow good learning to happen, inherently there has to be some vulnerability, right? There has to be some vulnerability in saying like, I have no idea like how to do this. Like, or like, oh man, I said this to a client, but I'm thinking about it now. Maybe I should have said this, right? And when people are in supervision, but they feel that their employment, their professional performance and appraisals are sometimes kind of like connected with that. Sometimes, you just need that differentiation for things for really for everybody, for the students' protection. So it doesn't kind of get blended in, because we want students to know you're being assessed right here as a student and it has nothing to do with your work, right? Um,
Yeah, there's another question about opportunities involving evening hours, and I will say this delicately but firmly, they're going to be hard to come by.
mhm.
Because of the factor that we need you guys to be supervised by an employee, and oftentimes those work hours are more typical of the standard business day. So they're not always, your supervisor might not always be there in the evenings or on the weekends. So I'm not going to say it's impossible, but you limit your options in field placements in that regard. And somebody asked earlier if you can do the field placement in your geographic area versus in Plattsburgh, and absolutely. We have that happening now. I've got a student down in the city working in a medical center. I've got somebody on Long Island. I've got somebody else in Syracuse. So it's doable. And that's where the field director really plays an important role, is to help ensure that you have a solid experience in the field, and you're at organizations that are going to support your learning.
Yeah. And the last question I see here, what did I mention about supervision and supervisor? Just in brief, that if you're doing an employment-based field, that we try to ensure that you have a supervisor for your field work that is different than your employment-based supervisor.
Okay. So you've already you did touch on a lot of the different career opportunities available to social workers. But is there anything else that you want to mention about any of these areas?
Um, I think the only thing, just in briefly, that I'll say is that this truly is not an exhaustive list. It just, the list really does keep on growing. Yeah.
Um, then there was a follow-up question I just saw pop up to
Yeah.
the supervisor supervision asking how can they attain that? So how would they be able to get a field supervisor that's different than their work supervisor?
So that's our process of working, directly with students. We get a sense about, we connect with the organization, right? So if this is a possibility where a student can have an employment-based field, we're talking with the agency. We have to develop an affiliation agreement with the agency if we don't already have one. And so conversations, it doesn't always happen in the same straight line every time. Sometimes conversation will happen with the organization to see if there are other social workers available. Sometimes it's happened where we have somebody external to the agency provide that supervision. So it's not a cookie cutter answer because it's not a cookie cutter approach. Yeah. Can you intern at all of these places throughout the program? No. Sorry, I know that's ideal. So why and why, right? Like, because if I'm hearing that, I don't like why? Why can't I do that? Well, you can't do that because it really restricts your learning. Looking at this page that's here and understanding that we're an advanced generalist, we're promoting you to have diverse experiences so that you can be adaptable, so that you can have exposure to different populations, so that you can have exposure to different challenging tasks as a social worker, different, policies that, impact, different communities and different groups of people. So, I think the only kind of caveat to, or like the one, kind of maybe fine print to that answer of no, is unless you work at an agency that is so large, and there are some that maybe, have so many different units and departments that you would have enough diverse of a difference in, what you're doing from your first year to your second year. Um, then that could be possible. Um, but we encourage you to, broaden your horizons, right? And
Yeah.
how many special, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think another aspect of this is if you're in the 60 credit program, you have two field placements. You have one each year, and you're at the same field placement for that entire academic year.
Yeah.
And if it's a large organization, yeah, maybe you might move around a little bit and get some exposure to, let's say you're in a hospital and you're on the med surge floor for a month, and then maybe you're in pediatrics for a month, but you're still doing a lot of the similar, assessing and discharge planning, but you're getting different perspectives on it, or you're learning about different policies or procedures. And part of the reason for that is, yes, to expose you to different things, but also to have a consistent supervisor who is going to support your learning across that academic year and really develop those skills. And if you were bouncing around to different supervisors and different agencies, we wouldn't have that continuity and be able to see that growth in a real kind of measurable way.
Right. And so I think, Trisha, you just answered the question about how many specialties are required to intern. So you only have two. You have 1 year, your first year, if you're a 60 credit, and then your second year. If you're an advanced standing student, you have one. Um, Let's see, I'm trying to catch up on some of these. We don't pick our MSW placement, do we? So it's a collaborative process. That's why we have those conversations with you. That's why you'll fill out some information so we can get a sense of what you're looking for. But you don't place yourselves. We place we do that in collaboration with you, and we facilitate that process. We confirm that process. We are the ones helping you through that. But no, you cannot find your own placement. So we do that. Can you use the same program for both years? I think we answered that. Um, let's see. School
Yeah,
social.
and somebody asked about part-time, full-time. You can switch from full-time to part-time. You would work with your advisor to ensure that you're taking the courses in the order that makes the most sense and lines up with whenever you're doing your field placement and taking those courses concurrently. But yes, it's absolutely possible to switch. It just takes some planning and talking through with your advisor.
The one other thing I didn't say when I talked about our program pathways, that I will mention since that question was just raised, is I have sometimes advised and talked with students about how you can do the part-time, how you can start off part-time. If you are a 60 credit student, how you can start off part-time and finish up full-time. So kind of breaking it down a little bit smaller in the beginning. So like year one being part-time with courses, year two being part-time where you're in your field and you're taking that into your intervention classes. And then if that's all feeling really manageable and you feel like you've gotten into your groove, then you can certainly move into your final year full-time. Um, but yes, I just want to reinforce everything that Dr. Weldon just said, that you work closely with your advisor and you can help make adjustments.
And someone
Not
else asked about,
necessarily 2 years. Our program pathway is it's pretty like laid out in terms of what you have to do. And because, we can't promise, additional summer courses, I would hate for somebody to feel like they've walked away with the promise of 2.5 years versus 3 years.
someone else asked about when the internships actually start. So do
Great
internships
question.
start right away when you start the
Yeah.
semester?
Yes. Yep. So you'll be starting. So that's why there's a lot of like, so we're in spring, right? So right now, or like, in the upcoming weeks, our field director, well, she's actually already started with like the information and whatnot. So like the placing is in progress so that in, the very beginning of fall, August, late August, early September, students will be, you know, in their placements, and, beginning that work.
Somebody asked if their advisor recently changed, who would they contact?
If their
Um,
advisor recently changed. Do you know who your new advisor is?
Yes.
the other thing is when you get accepted to graduate school, you get assigned
Yeah.
an advisor that is likely, if you're in the undergrad, it could be different than your
Mhm.
undergrad advisor.
And that
And
should be in the letter of
yeah,
acceptance, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
that's in an acceptance letter. It'll have the advisor's name and email address. Yep,
Yeah,
so
And
there's really
Morgan, if you
not.
can't find it in there, I'm sorry.
That's
Or go ahead.
No, there was just another question if there's any way to finish quicker than 2 years if you're not eligible for the 30. And there's really not. I mean, you can lighten your load if you're able to take a summer or winter class. The real challenge comes in is the field placement. And is that you need to get those hours in. And currently people are doing their field placements during the typical, standard academic year. We don't do field placements over the summer, so you can't get those hours in. So that's the challenge to getting the 2 year program done any faster than 2 years.
Yeah, and just to add to that, just so everybody knows, so when you're exploring all of your options, that is actually that's not a SUNY Plattsburgh rule, that's a CSWE rule. So the body that oversees us and accredits us, the Council on Social Work Education, that's their standard that all accredited programs have to follow for the 900 hours that for the 60 credit program. Yeah.
there's a question as well about they're doing the program online but in a different state. How does the field placement work?
So we work with you to find something there. And that's where, again, it's very collaborative. We might, our field director might need to say, like, okay, tell me what's near you. Tell me what you're interested in. Let me do some homework, let you do some homework, and let's figure this out together and see where we can place you in your geographic location.
And someone's asking, can you still apply for summer semester now if you have an advanced degree? I don't know if they mean if they're applying for advanced standing, but you can still apply right now. The application is still open. Our acceptance letter is done. Some applications are still being reviewed. So if you haven't heard yet, you should
Yeah.
soon. There's still time to apply for fall. Yes, there's still time to apply for the fall semester. So we'll be talking about the admissions process, but there was a priority deadline of January 9th. The application is still open. The priority deadline means that everyone who was applied by that point, those applications all get reviewed first. And then additional applications can be reviewed if there's space still available. So we still have it up and open. So the next part is questions, which we've been doing, but if anybody has any more questions, please keep sending them in. How many years after graduating with an advanced standing do you qualify for advanced standing?
Oh, so how many years after graduating with an
For
undergraduate
license.
degree in social work are you eligible to apply for the advanced standing? Is that the question? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I think Trisha, is it 5?
I believe it's 5.
Yeah. So yeah, it's usually around 5. And it's there is a little bit of gray in there that we have been permitted to kind of take a look at, and we've had some times where we've looked at people's transcripts and whatnot, and we've looked at the time that's lapsed, and we maybe have had to say, you would need to take these couple of classes because so much has changed in policy in the last 7 years versus 5 years. But then, aside from these 2 additional classes, we could work with you at advanced standing.
And someone else asked if you can start in the spring, or does it have to be in the fall? Right now it is fall only.
Mhm.
Another person asked, are we able to take all asynchronous courses or is the curriculum in the previous slides mandatory? So if you're doing the online program, it is a mix of asynchronous and synchronous. So like Julie said, there would be one day a week, correct, where you would have your synchronous classes.
Mhm.
Okay. How would you go about becoming licensed after pursuing your MSW? That's a good question. So what do people do after they get their degree to get licensed?
So after you complete the program, once you graduate, you have your transcript. You can sit and this is New York State because each state is slightly different. And right now in social work, we don't have reciprocity. So if you get a license in New York, you can't go to Tennessee and work there. You have to get a license in Tennessee. But in New York, you can sit for the licensed master's social work exam pretty much right after you're done. Once you have your transcript and you submit your application and of course your funds to New York State, you can sit for that exam. And then if you are in a work setting where you're doing clinical work and you're getting clinical supervision, you need to build up, was it 2,000 direct hours of work and then 200 hours of clinical supervision by somebody who is an LCSW. And then once you have that, you can sit for the clinical exam if you so choose to.
Yep.
Another question asked, when would be the best time to send an application for fall 26? Right now. Now. Now.
Yesterday.
Yes. Send
So
your
I do just want to say a couple of things because again, I'm sorry, I don't know if we have any of our SUNY Plattsburgh BSW students on this call. If you are a SUNY Plattsburgh BSW student, you do not have to submit your, and you're applying for the advanced standing, which would make the logical sense. You do not have to submit your 2 letters of recommendation. The rationale for that is that we as faculty know our students quite well. There's consultation, and you have to submit your field evaluation as part of your application process for advanced standing status. So I just wanted to put that out there in case there's anybody that's here that might be applicable to.
And then another person said, if I'm taking 2 years to do the undergraduate and a year for the master's, can I take the summer course? So anyone that is applying to the advanced standing can take the summer course. If you want to do that, you would apply to summer. I should clarify that for advanced standing, you can select to apply to either summer or fall. If you apply for summer, it is just that one course that you could take to start off.
Yeah, and again, I just want to underscore you have to be enrolled in the program, and you have to be right now. So the course that we're offering over the summer is a year 2 class. So you'd have to be in the advanced standing for this summer to take the psychopathology class that's being offered this summer.
And that's going to have limited space.
Yes, I have kind of joked that it may be kind of like getting tickets to a Taylor Swift concert. So it will be a bit of first come, first serve. Um,
Um,
and I'm sorry if we didn't answer your question. So you were asking for the master's, if you have to come in once a week. You are only coming in if you select the in-person hybrid program. If you are applying to the online program, you don't physically come in. You will have classes where you have to Zoom into, but you don't have to, you're not physically coming to campus. Did that help answer that?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you've been out of school for a while, somebody asked about letters of recommendation. I would encourage you, somebody who can speak to your skills and your, you know, character. So it might be a current supervisor at your job. Might be somebody that if you do volunteer work, somebody that there, um, maybe a coworker, uh, not a friend, not a therapist, somebody that can speak to your work, your work character and knowledge.
Mhm.
Um, Somebody else asked about how do you know if you're advanced standing? You're advanced standing if you did your undergraduate degree in social work. If you did your undergraduate degree in anything else, you have to do the 60 credit program, which is not the advanced standing.
Someone else asked, how often is the Zoom for online classes?
So it could depend based on the semester, right? So for instance, the fall semester has a lot of practice courses. The fall semester, I'm going to go year 2. Year 2 has a lot of practice courses. So students every Wednesday will be zooming in to one of their courses. That does not mean that the same course will meet weekly, right? So just to give you for instance, I teach one class, right? It's called, I'll just call it interventions. Trisha teaches trauma, right? On week A, my class might be zooming in, right? And my class will meet. On week B, every other week, Trisha's class will be zooming in. So it kind of rotates where you're not going to be zooming into my class weekly or her class weekly, but it's every other week and it's on a rotating basis. Now, in the spring, actually, the way that it's set up this spring, our students are mostly asynchronous and they're only zooming in for their field seminar. So it really kind of depends on which class it is that you're taking. Um, and that's the variability there.
And there is someone's asking about if they're able to do all asynchronous. So neither of the programs are completely asynchronous. Both programs would have some component where you're doing some synchronous coursework.
Yeah.
Um, Someone asked, what are your recommendations for getting letters of recommendation if you finished your bachelor's degree quite a while ago? And you're already getting a letter of recommendation from your supervisor. So you need at least two letters. So a supervisor, and who else might you suggest? I would say usually like if you have more than one supervisor, even a colleague.
Yeah, even a colleague would be okay. I think, like Dr. Weldon said, you want to ask somebody who can speak to kind of your work attributes and ethics and how you're, yeah, to that side of you. The other thing that I will mention is that sometimes we have students who are like, my GPA is below the, threshold, it's below what you guys look for. And I'm always very transparent with students and say, if that is your situation, be very transparent in your application statement. We recognize that sometimes early on in undergraduate studies, people don't always know like their best ways of learning. They don't know, they may not know how to manage their time. They might have had a life circumstance that was a blip, and so, it is best if you can kind of explain a little bit about, I didn't know good study habits and I had to work hard at, trying to improve them. But as you can see in these last couple of years, I have, increasingly shown, progress. And that's helpful for, the committee to see that you recognize that and that you actively work towards that. Um, so that's just one little piece of advice we offer as well.
Yeah, there's a question again about summer classes, and I just want to clarify. So the one class that we're talking about is psychopathology, and that's being put kind of to the side for the advanced standing students because they need that class in the 1 year they're in the program in order to graduate, in order to be able to meet the New York State requirements uh, for courses. But there will be a couple other courses offered in the summer or in the winter session that non-advanced standing students could take. And this is where you can outreach to your advisor and talk about kind of what makes the most sense and kind of how to plot those in because we understand that yes, people have as Dr. Pfeiffer said earlier that work-life balance that we're all trying to juggle everything. We know people are working, have families, have kids, have elderly parents, other obligations. But we want to ensure that you're taking the courses in the correct order. So if you're not an advanced standing student, talk to your advisors to see what would fit best.
And
Um,
then
I
Kylie,
think
your
if we
question about, oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was going to say somebody asked about fee waivers. So fee waivers are available for EOP students, those with military status. And then usually, once a year we offer some to alumni, and current students. Those are already used up for this year. Um, so those are typically the only fee waivers that we have. And then there's a question also about the diversity fellowship requiring a tax statement. I don't know about that. That's not something I was aware of. So I would send that question into graduate at plattsburgh.edu and we can look into that and let you know the answer to that.
Kylie, your question about if you move, does it present a challenge? Well, I think that what I would say is this, recognizing that, you really, we set up the field placements to really be like um, over a year. That doesn't mean that we haven't had to, for one reason or another, make changes with and behalf of a student. What I would say though is if like, let's say you're planning to move in October, it absolutely doesn't make sense to begin a field placement, like, somewhere where you're located to because it's just so disruptive to the agency, to the clients. It just kind of, in that regard, almost wouldn't feel very like it wouldn't feel like ethical for our collaborations with the organization. So I think to answer your question, yes, we can make that work, but I think that we just have to be very coordinated and planful with you to know how to set that up appropriately for you, for an organization, and for those potentially impacted by your service to the organization. You're in the BSW program now, doing field work next year, and you'll be graduating. Yeah, so if you are looking to come in the fall of 2027, you would apply in January of 2027.
The applications open in August each year for the following year.
Yeah, thank you
So
for
if you were applying for fall of 27, you could start applying as soon as August, and usually the priority deadline is in January each year.
And there's nobody in particular that you're addressing your statement of purpose to. It's submitted through the portal when you register to apply. And maybe you can describe the portal a little bit more,
Yeah.
a little better than me.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, we'll be getting to the application process in a minute, so I'll talk about that. Can we defer our admission date for January if we were accepted for fall? No. If you're accepted for the fall, because the program only takes new students in the fall, you would only be able to defer to the next fall. You wouldn't be able to defer to spring, so you cannot start the program in the spring. I had a lot of questions, so I'm trying to make sure we didn't miss any. So there's not.
I think there was one about grants and scholarships.
Yeah. So I will talk about funding opportunities as well. So we will get to that.
And then also, yes, you can switch if you've applied to the hybrid advanced standing and you'd like to go over to the online, you can switch now. We just really try to encourage like from there that you stay with the program that you have committed to. But yes, it's not too late to switch that. Morgan, do they do that with through you guys or how does that happen?
Yeah, they can do that through us. I think we can update your application in our office. I think as long as they're not registered or started classes yet,
Okay.
we should still be able to change it.
So if they just reach out to you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was one in the Q&A that says, I did my undergraduate in social work. Would I be required to do anything additional to start my graduate program? So if you are in the BSW program, you would just apply to the advanced standing. And if you're accepted, you would move into the advanced standing program. I don't think there's any additional requirement.
Only if you completed that more than 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then we'd have to look at that on a case by case basis.
All right, so I am going to move into the admissions process. So in order to apply, you would go to our website. The graduate admissions page has a how to apply page where you can access the application. It also goes through everything step by step. So I definitely recommend reading through that just so you get a little better idea. But you start the application on our website, and on your application, if you're required to submit letters of recommendation, you would name your recommenders right on your application, and that sends them an email prompting them to submit their recommendations. So those will get submitted directly to us. And you will submit your application, and you could submit your application before those letters come in. A lot of people have questions about that, but the letters do not need to be received before you submit your application. So submit that. And then there's also the $75 application fee. You would submit that, and then you'll be able to upload your additional documents. So your additional documents would include, as we mentioned, a resume and letters of recommendation. The only people exempt from letters of recommendation are SUNY Plattsburgh BSW students. You would also have all of your prior transcripts sent to us. If you're a SUNY Plattsburgh student, we will get your SUNY Plattsburgh transcript. But any other college transcripts, please request those from your previous colleges to be sent to SUNY Plattsburgh. You'll also submit a personal statement, And then for anyone who has a bachelor's of social work or is earning their bachelor's of social work, you also send a copy of your field evaluations. So these things will mostly all be uploaded in the portal, your resume, your personal statement, your field evaluations. When you log into your portal, you'll see a checklist of items that you need to make sure are received by us. You can upload those items right there. And you'll see that they get checked off as they're received. And if you have any questions at any point during the application process, if you're not sure if we got something, please email or contact our office and we can look in your file and see what you have and what you don't have. Because sometimes things might not get checked off correctly. Sometimes there's a tech glitch and you're not able to upload something and we can help you with that too. So as we mentioned, the entry term is fall or summer. Summer is only for advanced standing if they choose to apply. As we've mentioned as well, the modality is either hybrid or fully online. And the priority deadline this year was January 9th. It's typically in early January each year. As we mentioned earlier, the application is still open. So the way that that deadline works, I know I said this earlier, but the way the priority deadline works is all applications received by January 9th are reviewed first. And then if there's still space, the application can stay open and additional applications can be reviewed. Right now, we don't have a particular end date for that. So it just depends on how many spaces get taken. I wish I could be a little more clear on when our official deadline is. But I would just suggest if you're thinking about applying for this fall and you haven't, apply as soon as you can. And then the cost depends on if you're a New York State or out of state student. So New York State students, the tuition and fees is $15,466. If you did want to live on campus in Plattsburgh, you can. That would cost $28,496 for the tuition and the living on the campus. And then for students who are out of state, tuition and fees is $25,036. So just take a look at that, and that is per year. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So if you were a 2-year student, you would obviously double that cost. So moving into financial aid, it is still important for graduate students to complete the FAFSA. There are some things that are different when you're a graduate student. The first is that you only include your own income. You would no longer include your parents' information. So it's only your own information, and if you're married, your spouse's information. The other thing that's different is that graduate students do not receive TAP or Pell. So you would be looking at federal loans or also work study. And then we have a few different types of aid available through SUNY Plattsburgh. The first is with aid with a work obligation. So we do have assistantships and fellowships. Those have a work component. So that means if you were looking at these, you would need to be in the Plattsburgh area to fulfill these work obligations. The assistantships and fellowships are offered in academic offices, but also in administrative offices on campus. Assistantships provide a partial tuition waiver up to a full tuition waiver, as well as a stipend. And then fellowships are funded through work study. So you would have to qualify for work study dollars. And those positions pay $20 an hour, and they're 10 to 20 hours a week. And then we also have positions in the residence halls. So if that's something that you've done as an undergraduate student and you enjoyed working in the residence halls, you could still continue to do that as a graduate student. Those would provide you with a free room or apartment and a discounted meal plan. And some of those positions are also listed as assistantships, so you could potentially get a tuition waiver as well. And as I said, you can be an online student and apply for these. You would just need to be in the area to fulfill those work obligations. And then there's a couple that the deadline has passed to apply for these, but I'll still mention them as some people might be interested in applying next year. The first is the Diversity Fellowship, which is open to US residents. The application asks you some questions about how you would contribute to the diversity of the student body and the field that you're going into. And then the second is the Graduate Opportunity Program. That is open only to EOP, HEOP, or SEEK students. Um, that is a very basic application that gets certified by your EOP director. And you can earn $1,000 up to full tuition. And that is due February 15th each year. Both of those applications are on our website. And then there's also some program specific funding. These are mostly through agencies or the state that are not directly associated with SUNY Plattsburgh, but that you can look into and apply to if you feel that you're eligible. I don't know if Julie or Trisha, if you want to mention any of these specifically. I don't know as much about them as you guys might, but they all are listed on our website with links for information. But if either of you want to talk about any of them, please feel free.
Yeah, I think I'll just briefly mention, just to kind of be mindful of the time, the Career Pathways Training Program. That is funding that is available for this year only. So students would have to be graduated by May of 2027. But that is a funding source that is essentially paying for all of tuition and books included. The behavioral health workforce education and training, and Trisha, you can please chime in because you're better versed in this than I am. But very briefly, you're required to work with a particular, you have to be doing mental health work. The commitment is that you would remain in certain geographic locations, which I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, but maybe we can send the links out to you guys, or you said it's posted, Morgan.
I believe they're all posted on our
Yeah,
website.
so those counties are posted. And it is offering students $25,000 stipend a year. And that's really like what's required is like the population that you serve, and then I think 6 hours of training a month, Trisha.
Yes, and that for that one, it's only you're only eligible for that when you're in your final year.
Yeah.
So
So
in that advanced standing year. So anybody in the 2-year program, you can apply for that once you are heading into your advanced standing year.
yeah.
Um, Trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to mention about these. The QR code should take you to our financial aid resources page for graduate students. And these would be listed towards the bottom under program specific funding. Again, these are mostly things that are not through SUNY Plattsburgh itself. So you would need to look at each individual opportunity to see if you would qualify. Okay. I think that might have been our last slide. Yeah. So I did see a couple more questions about tuition. So tuition is for 1 year is a little over $15,000 for the year. So that would make it about 7 or 8,000 per semester. Are there any internal scholarships for students with a low GPA? There's not any internal scholarships per se. The things we offer internally through Plattsburgh would be assistantships, fellowships, the GOP funding that we mentioned, and the diversity fellowship. There's nothing specifically related to GPA for any of those.
Yeah. And I know we gave a lot of information tonight, but the good news is it's being recorded. And Morgan's going to share that. So, you can feel free to, play it again and rewind, fast forward to, the parts that you needed to hear again.
That's exactly what I was going to say as well, because we did get a lot of questions today. You guys were a great audience.
Yeah.
You sent in a lot of great questions. So I will hopefully have this ready to go out tomorrow. It'll be on our YouTube channel, and I will send everyone who registered for tonight's event the link to that in an email. So definitely look out for that if you want to, check out anything that we talked about tonight. But is there anything else that Julie or Trisha want to mention or say before we sign off?
No, I just want to echo the fact that I really appreciated everybody's thoughtful questions. I'll say it again. There's a lot that you can do in social work. So I'm just so glad that you're all here tonight. I'm glad that you're interested in the Cardinal community. And yeah, we hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Julie and Tricia, both for your expertise and for answering lots of great questions. And thank you to everyone in our audience. We hope you all have a great night.
Take care, everyone.